But the question is it classic ISIS-K is a separate issue? And that's something that needs to be analyzed here. Because my experience of having fought in counterinsurgency wars and fighting against terrorists and against violent extremists in both Afghanistan and Iraq really shows that they have some commonalities here. Number one, they are believers in what they do. Number two, they are willing to sacrifice their lives for this. And a third thing, especially in what I saw so many of the times in the Taliban and in some of these other terrorist groups with Al-Qaeda or whatever, they were not motivated by money. They were motivated by ideology and religious fervor. And that's why you had so many willing to die in suicide bombs, wearing those suicide vests, etc. And they were not willing to be taken captive. I don't know how many times I remember intelligence briefings that I got while I was, on these combat deployments of we were going after, some of these guys, and instead of being captured, they set off a suicide belt because they were not going to be captured alive. So let's take a look at what we know now about this particular case. Now, a friend of mine who has some connections to the intelligence community raised some serious questions here and says something just doesn't smell right to this, and it doesn't to me either. First of all, it turns out that these guys were Tajiks. They were in the country already, but they were caught actually trying to escape into to Ukraine, where, according to the Russians, there was a, quote, window open waiting for them on the other side. So that raises some bells. Why would they have been going into Ukraine as opposed to anywhere else they could have escaped out of, especially if they were Tajiks? They could have gone elsewhere. But the second one is that they were paid, or at least promised, 500,000 rubles. So they didn't do this out of any religious fervor. They did it for a lot of money. The second one is that the plan was developed by a third party. Oh, and you're going to hear this in one of the interrogation videos that's out there right now. A remarkable video that's you're going to find very compelling. But you'll see in this video that these guys were contacted by someone else via a Telegram channel. So it's like our Twitter, so to speak. And so they didn't know who these people were. They had no connection to it other than a voice and a text message situation. So this wasn't their fervor. This was someone else contacting them. And of course, it could be anybody on the other end of that line. So it's not at all clear who was actually doing this. The second was the planner was an anonymous imam's assistant who contacted them. So they claiming to be, someone on ISIS-K, a preacher that they apparently had been listening to. So they were very vulnerable and subject to be manipulated here easily. All surrendered when they were cornered here. Nobody had a suicide vest. So that's another thing that is not an earmark of an ISIS-K, like the one in Iran that I told you about. That was a suicide bomber that they sacrificed their lives in here. These guys all wanted money. These are not the hallmarks of somebody who's ideologically motivated. And if ISIS-K actually did this, one would ask, why did they not send their own people to do it, as somebody who was dedicated to this? And certainly they have the opportunity of those in Russia. They've got people that are able to get into nearly any place there. So that doesn't prove anything, but it does raise a lot of questions that things just don't seem to be lining up right now.